Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on someone I met down at Blue Collar Barbell back in September of last year. I got to saw him compete on the pro day, and then after we got to go to Miller's Ale House, and I got to slam back some $4 margaritas. Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself?
First of all, I gotta say, the amount of $4 margaritas you put away was impressive. Definitely more impressive than whatever I did at the meet. I'm Ryan Critti, probably more unfamously known on Instagram as Banquets, and I lift heavy shit for fun.
Oh yeah. So we'll start off by kind of talking about what got you into powerlifting. Maybe tell us about your background and kind of what got you into your first meet.
Okay. So long story short, played football in high school, started my sophomore year from my freshman year all the way back to like kindergarten. I played soccer. Had a history teacher my freshman year, Coach Smith, who said, "Critti, you're too fucking big to be playing soccer. If you don't start going to the weight room for football, I'm going to fail you." And of course, me being an idiot at 14, I'm like, I want to pass this class. So I went. First day, squatted, I think like 405. Never touched a weight before. So I guess like I was born for this. But, you know, my dad was a marathon runner and my mom did intramural sports in college. So where I came from, I have no fucking idea. But from there, played football, was trying to go play actually up at Sacred Heart University. In the process between my junior and senior year, I had to have both my shoulders fully reconstructed with season-ending injuries. You played football, you kind of know how it goes. When you have two back-to-back season-ending injuries, it's most likely you're not going to play ball.
Yep.
Which it was a business decision. I understood that. So then fast forward, I went to Kane University up in the Union, New Jersey area around like Elizabeth. So went there, and I had two buddies of mine, Dave Galante, who was one of the offensive linemen, and my buddy Eric Ravelli, who I'm still really close with, Swede. They both were more into like the powerlifting, you know, real like grungy, just lifting heavy shit, like snorting pre-workout, like the works. So they got me into it, and then you know, like everyone else, I got bit by the bug, as cliche as that sounds, and had my first meet, I think back in 2013 up in Stony Brook University at RPS meet. Coached myself, watched a bunch of videos on YouTube, and I'm like, I can do this. Almost bombed, and I think I probably went like 4 for 9. And I was like, hey man, this shit ain't gonna work. So you know, do what everyone else did, found someone who knew more than me, and here we are.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you started off raw?
Yeah, first meet was raw, no wraps, naked knees.
Yuck.
So that's probably why my knees are fucking shot now.
And when was your first equip meet?
So my first equip meet, I want to say, was maybe 2015, maybe around then. But it was single ply, and it was all like hand-me-down shit, so it didn't really fit me great, so I don't really count that. But my first like official multiply meet was 9/11 2 years ago. So I guess Strength of Heroes 2.
Yep.
Because I did a couple single ply meets in the IPA, but unless you specify it's single ply, they'll just throw you in with the multiply guys and say good luck. So of course, me being stupid, I was like, I can do this, and guys are squatting like 9,000 plus, and I'm over here like hitting 7. And I'm like, dude, something ain't right, because I outweigh these dudes by like 60 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, that was the Strength of Heroes 3 was the meet that we did, and that was a really fun meet. I know Shauna puts on a really good meet there.
Yes.
Maybe tell me a little bit about your relationship with her.
So Shauna and I go back easily it's got to be at least a decade, if not more at this point. My previous coach from when I first started was Phil Harrington out of Westside. So he was there with like Panora, Hoff, all those guys back in like, the early 2000s and shit. So he was a mutual friend of ours. And then life happens. Him and I went our separate ways. And then, Sean has always kind of been that like guardian angel in powerlifting when, he couldn't come out to a meet. She was basically my surrogate coach. She made sure I had, everything I needed. I was wrapped, handoffs, numbers, attempts, the fucking works. I can never repay everything she's done for me. So just from helping, and then, our friendship grew. He's hands down one of my best friends. I love that woman unconditionally. And a couple of years ago, when I finally was like, I want to get back into powerlifting after COVID, because like, the world shut down, everyone was freaking the fuck out. I didn't have a coach, so I was just kind of like bullshitting, fucking around. I followed Aunt Oliveira's program, and they did on his Patreon for a little bit. So I'm like, I want to do some conjugate, and I know Aunt. We did a meet or one or two meets back in the day. So like, him and I have a decent relationship. And go to the meet again by myself. So Sean again just took the reins, and I was like, after the meet, I did all right. And I told her, I'm like, just here's the keys to the kingdom. Just tell me what to fucking do, and I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, when you listen to someone who's been in the game as long as her, who knows her shit, the baddest bitch in the game, you're gonna do well. Like you found a coach, Kirby, that the programming he's giving you is obviously working. So it's like, it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, it's funny because like with me, I hit the small little PR yesterday, and it was like a couple weeks back. Kirby even commented on the post of like I was kind of like freaking out because like my AMRAP sets were starting to go down in reps, and I was like, is my bench going backwards? What's going on? And then I go and hit this, and it's like, remember a few weeks ago when you said your bench was going backwards? And so I think having a coach has honestly been awesome. So I mean, it's gonna be cool having him there at the meet to like handle me and stuff like that. But
it makes a world of difference, man. It makes like training partners are cool and all. Like I'm always thankful for my training partners who show up. But when you have your coach there, man, it is a fucking night and day difference. You literally don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, and that's what was great with having John Rupo with me too, because he handled me in the meet I did in April and in down in at Blue Collar, and just like before that I was riding solo. I would just show up with me and my dad. He wasn't picking my attempts. I'd be like, hey, does this sound good? He's like, yeah, you probably got that. I mean, I didn't do bad on my own. I'm not like I'm an idiot in a different way, but
you're not a scrub.
Yeah. But no, it's definitely made a world of difference. And now that I use wraps too, I'm not doing that alone.
And once you finally start putting on some big boy weight, it's numbers going to be going up for you.
Yeah. And I'll definitely be needing a coach too when I'm doing multiply this. I think I'm going to try something this winter. I just got all my gear. I got some hand-me-downs from Kirby, some hand-me-downs from Connor Boyle. So
listen, right now, the only thing I have that's custom is my F8 shirt that Rob made for me, but everything else is hand-me-down. My deadlift suit is from Leah. My squat suit is from Andrew up at Hellbent. My briefs right now I just got from Tara down in Florida. Before that I had custom briefs, but I bought them when I was like 355, and I was not 355 at 9/11, so had to do a lot of altering. So now I'm working my way into 3-ply briefs, and it's a motherfucker. It's a real game changer though once you kind of learn them.
Yeah, I'm glad I do have a lot of people around me to kind of help me with the gear too, because I mean, if who knows, if I hate it, then at least I didn't spend like $1,500 on gear.
Yeah, and also too, not even just to have people like you're just gonna need people there just to help you. You're gonna need someone there to help you set your shirt. You're gonna need someone there to help you set your suit. You're gonna need people there to spot and run a mono and the whole nine. So like, if you can get a decent crew of like 4 or 5 people, you're set. More is better, but minimum like 4 or 5 and you're golden.
Yeah, I mean, just with like Charlie getting into gear recently too, like he's been going up like crazy too. I mean, obviously when you have John as your coach, you're gonna get up there. But
he was strong before, but I feel like every time I fucking go on Instagram, he's making like 20-pound PR here, 30-pound PR there, and I'm like, dude, like, you got to give me a chance for when I come back, bro. Like, you're not making this easy for me.
Yeah, so we can talk about a little bit about that too. I know after the meet, you kind of wanted to take things on the back burner. Maybe talk about your decision for that and kind of what's coming up for you.
Yeah, so the decision was kind of made pretty much definitively before I agreed to do the meet. I was very very lucky that I got a woman like Beck who is my wife. A lot of people know her. She's the quiet blonde who doesn't want to be the center of attention, who kind of sits off to the side of meets. But she's let me be extremely, extremely selfish. And I wouldn't be where I'm at, in the gym, on the platform, personally, if it wasn't for her just letting me be so selfish. So I owe a lot to her. And it came to a point where, we bought a house, which was, huge, which I ended up having. The way it worked out, I competed on September 10th, and then literally the Saturday after, my broken body is trying to move shit into this house in PA. So it was not a good time. But we want to start a family. I was kind of banged up. Mental health wasn't really great. So I said, let me take a step back. Powerlifting's not going anywhere. I only got a certain timeline to where I can really, hit it hard. So let me, take a step back, focus on me, get myself, gooder. And then, when the time's right for me to come back, I'm going to come back and, hopefully, I'll be better than ever.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned Gooder. Is that? Let me tell. Yeah, sorry. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that was actually something that me and my buddy Brian, who most people know as Whopper Senior on Instagram, I call him the Natty Light Andy Reid. Kid's a fucking maniac, but I love him to death. Me, him, Pre, who she just competed not too long ago. I believe it was at North of the Border when she unfortunately broke her arm because she got too strong for her bones. It was just the three of us at my old home gym, the Pit in Eatontown, New Jersey, right off the exit 105 off the Garden State Parkway. Gina, shout out to you. Appreciate you. So it was literally just the three of us. So there'd be days where like Sean would program me to squat against, total of 4 blues plus, 200 pounds of chain and shit like that. And it's just me, Brian, and Pre. And then, it got to a point where like, hey man, we can't keep doing this sketchy shit with the three of us. And then Chris has been telling me to come up forever. So I finally said, fuck it, let me go up and take advantage of him. And it was just something that we would say because like so many people take themselves so seriously. And again, like what we do is cool to the 1% of the population that gives a shit. So it's like, Chris Delafave, he says it best, man. Like you're just lifting weights with your friends. Like that's all it is. So we just sit around and someone would fuck up, be like, hey man, like you ever just think about doing it gooder? And just from there, just kind of took on its own thing. And then now I kind of came up with the gooder strength, which I don't know if that's just gonna be like a t-shirt thing I do once in a while, or if I'm kind of now slowly kind of getting interested and getting the itch to maybe do some coaching because I used to coach high school football, so that was a lot of fun. Just because I want to give back to the sport. Sport gave me a lot, not financially, but as far as like people in my life, learning how to do hard things and overcome them, and just all the good stuff that can come out of powerlifting, because I know right now there's so much fucking crazy bullshit, man, going on, whether it's people on their pedestals wanting to be like Bible beaters talking about integrity or dots over totals, and then you got the other stuff I'm not even going to get into because this podcast will then be like 8 hours long. But it's good. The gooder strength is kind of starting to take on its own little entity. I'm just slowly growing it because I can only really handle like one thing at a time. So if I start putting my hands in different cookie jars, I'm up shit's creek without a paddle. Yeah. So it's something I'd like to grow. Like I said, whether it's like a clothing thing with like different, hoodies or shirts or this or that, or even if I just start doing like, self-programming, or if people are interested in having me coach, I'd like to think I know a little bit about this. So, but it's just its own thing. I just kind of did it for fun, for shits and gigs, and people actually started taking it seriously, and I'm like, oh fuck, man, I gotta try to do something with this now.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of where we're at right now, just having fun with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going back a little bit to kind of what you mentioned about what Chris said about we're all just lifting weights with friends. I think that's something huge in the sport that needs to be kind of, I guess, put to light more because all the politics in the sport right now are bullshit, especially in such a niche community, especially
Yeah,
multiply where it's even more niche. Like it just,
yeah. And I mean, you have, first of all, I look at it as you have the raw side, then you have the geared side. And then on the geared side, there's like a fucking civil war going on between like poly and band. And it's like, dude, like we're all here just trying to do the same shit. Like we should all just want to lift heavy weights however we want to lift heavy weights. Like who gives a shit? Um, I like to bench an unlimited because I get to hold much, much heavier weights to prime my CNS. Excuse me, so that when I do go into a poly, theoretically, I should be able to handle more as long as I can, learn the groove of the shirt properly. Listen, you want to squat in sleeves all the time raw? By all means, go at it. Listen, my body was not able to do that 10 years ago. Guess what? It's not gonna be able to do it now either. So, like you going off what you said about how it's such a niche community. Like, it's literally maybe 1% of the total population of the world, and then like 1% of that 1% is in like that top upper echelon of lifters, and everyone's just being an asshole. Well, excuse me, let me take it back. Not everyone, but you have a good portion of people being assholes and political, and like I said, people being on their pedestals and their soapbox or whatever. It's like, dude, if the sport of powerlifting is doing well, then we're all winning, and that's what matters. Like we all want the sport to grow. So as long as the sport's growing, who gives a shit? Like it's people want to make this like so complicated. It's so easy, and I don't know. It blows my mind sometimes with like people are like, "This is my hill. I'm gonna die on." It's like you're gonna die on a hill for a hobby.
yeah.
Like I don't know. Maybe worry about like paying your bills, like having money for that, not flying halfway across the country to bomb out in the meet, then fly back for nothing. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because like with like bodybuilding, you can do it as a career. Like there's money in it, and like powerlifting, it's a hobby. Like people just need to realize it's
Yeah.
yeah. Now more days, there's more meets with money in them, but there's
Mhm.
enough to maybe pay for your trip and go out to dinner after. It's not enough to quit your day job. Like you still got to work.
Yeah. No, listen, I still got to wake up 4:30 every morning to save the railroad. Like that's not going to change anytime soon.
So now that you're kind of on the back burner, I see you're still training pretty heavy. How's that been going?
It's going pretty well. Shauna, she's a little evil genius, mastermind scientist, whatever moniker you want to give her. Um, so right now we're still, even though my supplementation is non-existent now versus September, you know, we're still trying to see where I can be at, I guess without any supplementation versus, when Beck and I agree that it's the right time for me to come back and I can pull the trigger and then, see how much more of a carryover I'll get, because everyone thinks you start taking stuff and it's like, oh man, like I'm gonna squat 15 million pounds, and it's like, no, dude, like you got to put in those extra days, you got to put in that extra time, you have to put in that extra effort in order to get, the desired carryover. And I feel like that's a big misconception, especially with, you know, younger kids. I've been at meets where I've heard, kids 17, 18 years old, like, man, I can't wait to start blasting shit. It's like, dude, like, you even got any hair on your peaches down there? Like, let's worry about like getting a job. Like, become a man first, and then we'll worry about that down the road. And it's everyone just wants that like that quick fix, and there's no magic pill. No matter what you try to take, nothing will ever be just the discipline and hard work you got to put in for this. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I always like joke about just blasting trend and all that bullshit, but like,
Listen, it's fun. I'm not going to disagree. It's fun, but long term, like, listen, that's not the move, Pop.
yeah. Like, I'm trying to be in the sport for a while. Like, I can see myself being pretty successful in the sport, so there's no reason to rush things, and it's something
Yeah,
that I'm learning now. Like, I wasn't like pushing to get on anything or anything, but
yeah,
I kept saying like, oh, I want to hit these numbers here and hit these numbers there, and I want to do this. But now that I'm realizing I can just chip away at it slowly and get to
mhm,
my goals, like I can still be in the sport for another 20 years if I do it right. So that's plenty of time to get to where I want to be.
correct. I mean, like again, you got Kirby, who he obviously knows his shit. You got John, who's just a great person, and he's also a hell of a fucking lifter. You got Big Chuck, so like you got good people in your circle that are not going to steer you in the wrong direction. And luckily, that's what I had when I first came in. That I people kind of steer me, keep me away from all the bullshit to where I'm in the sport 11 going on 12 years, and I'm I guess I always joke around that now I'm finally doing shit of like relevance. But how many people do you see are like a Larry Wheels where they come to sport like 2 or 3 years and then they put up all these crazy numbers and they get hurt and then they become a personality on the internet. Granted, listen, he's making more money than the both of us will probably ever make in our lives, so good for him. But like just like you, I'm very passionate about the sport. I want the sport to succeed. I want the sport to grow. I'd like to contribute in that, whether I'm competing, coaching, whether I become a ref down the road, or just something to give back, because a lot of people want to take and use this hobby to feed into their ego, but then they don't want to put anything back in. They don't want to pour anything back in the pitcher of powerlifting,
Yeah.
which is it's a shitty thing to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the main reasons I started this podcast. I wanted to give some of the people in the sport a chance to speak and kind of put some light onto people that didn't know much about the sport. And I mean, kind of with that too, is like I want to coach more people. Like I have had some people here and there, and I have my client Alex now that I've been training him for, I don't know, 3 years maybe, and
Yeah.
he's gone down from like 340 down to like 260. Now he's back up to like 275, and
God damn.
he's put on some insane. Like he's honestly at this point he might out total me. So I'm like, am I doing a good job or am I just a pussy?
I mean, you know what? But if you have someone who, again, going back to the whole thing about having a coach, you know, obviously whatever you're giving him, he's following, that prescription or dosage or however you want to describe it, like to the T, no pun intended. But, when you have someone who's just willing to just put in the work and someone like that to lose all that weight, put weight on and get stronger, like that's only going to speak more volume as to your knowledge. Because again, I know, your degrees in biomechanical engineering, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So like you already know how the body moves and works. So not only that, but then you also know how to make people strong, and you put the two together. Well, it's like, well, here's a legitimate motherfucker who knows a goddamn thing or two versus, how many people do one meet? It's like, oh, I only got 3 spots left for online coaching. Pay me $150 a month. It's like, dude, like, fuck your own ass, man.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing too. I remember actually Dan Bell posted a story about these guys with 3 years experience and 1,600 totals coaching, and I look and I'm like, wait, I have a 1,600 total and 3 years experience, but I'm like, damn, he's calling me out, but I'm like, I feel like I know more than people who out total me, so it's kind of like a weird balance where like, and Bobby Humes brought this up a lot too about like you have to be an elite level lifter to be a good coach, but
Right.
I disagree and agree at the same time, so I kind of want to hear your thoughts.
So I can look at it from 2 ways, because when I first started going to school, I was going to school for physical therapy. Um, Switched majors very quickly into psychology, and I work for the railroad now, so we see how that works. Um, but so you have the knowledge of how the body is supposed to move, how it works, and everything like that. So you can break things down to its most fundamental, like puzzle piece. Whereas, say, just because we're both on here, you versus me, I've been doing this 11 years. I've been around all-time world record holders, like the cream of the crop, and I know what works and what doesn't work, or what may work better, what may not work as good.
Yeah.
Is that to say that one's better than the other? No, because, excuse me, we could have the same individual do both our programming, they'll both get stronger just because theoretically that's how it's going to work. But what are they going to respond to better? What do they understand better? What can they do more long term? That's terrible grammar, but what can they do longer and still have success? Because, you have everyone that either wants to do like RPE or, like the old school, like the German method. You have people that want to do, periodization, and you have conjugate, and you have people that want to do like power building. It's like you can probably pick at least a handful of people from each discipline that have reached the top. But again, it's what works specifically for them. Like, Chris responds very, very well to a shit ton of AR. I mean, I've seen him do stuff in the gym, which the top end weight with all the AR just fucking doesn't make sense. And he will just completely dust it. Whereas, like, someone like me, I respond better to more of almost like a 50-50 split of AR and actual weight. Is one better than the other? No, it's just he responds better to that. I respond better to this. It's all what, because it's all about, just trying to find what works. Because again, like I said before, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you may follow one discipline and hit a wall, and then you got to switch shit up, and then you move on to something else.
Yeah, and I think the thing is too with like a lot of the younger coaches, especially in like the USAPL world, I feel like it's a lot of recycled information. So
It's a lot of people just regurgitating and having diarrhea of the mouth of the same shit they've heard from 15 other fucking people who probably know just as much, if not less, than they do.
yeah,
Not saying that there aren't real strong USAPL lifters, but I'm sure, like you, my personal experience with the USAPL lifters that I've brushed elbows with have really not been anything worthwhile or positive.
yeah. I do think the best thing with that federation is it's bringing a lot of new young athletes into the sport. But
Yeah,
when I was talking with Kevin Oak last week about kind of the idea of like looking like you lift, like
correct.
why we need more people to just be big. He was like, I don't want to have to explain to people that I'm the 150-pound world champion powerlifter.
Yeah. I mean, because it's funny, because when I first started watching, or when I first started getting interested in powerlifting, it was like old school West Side, just a bunch of dudes who worked blue collar jobs, going to the gym, just screaming all the time, just lifting heavy shit. And, it was the whole theory was, mass moves weight. So the bigger and heavier you were, the more weight you were going to move. So that's when I was in college. I'm like, all right, sick. So I force fed myself to go from 265 to 300. Miserable, but I did it. And then now I'm like, okay, well, I'm 32. So I'm kind of like right in that like peak of, strength for powerlifting, especially for, guys and gear. It's like, man, being 330, 320, I'm like, that shit ain't it for me right now, Pop, because I'm 5'11 on my best day. Being 330, that doesn't make any long term, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah,
So I've been, I've worked with a couple different people. I've been really hitting my nutrition and my diet pretty good to where I'm slowly starting to shed the pounds, but I'm still training at a level that I'd like to train. Even though things are kind of dinged up and banged up, I try to find ways to work around stuff so I can still train and lift how I want to lift. Just it may not be what it was back in, August or July when I was, walking around like 318 with abs. You know, it's the name of the game, but it's like you said before, it's about longevity. I want to be in the sport or involved in the sport for a while. That's what.
that's kind of why for me, like I wanted to be at 242, and I think about 100 people told me to not do that, and I'm like, well, I don't want to get fat. Like I don't want to look. I still want to look good. And they're like, dude, you're 6'2" and you're 24. Like just start
Yeah,
fucking eating, you'll get strong.
make that 101 because you got the frame to really make. You're gonna hurt some feelings at 275 once you really start hitting your stride, and especially once you get in gear, like because I love being that guy that's like you're strong at 275. Think of what you'd be at 295.
That's what John and Charlie are already saying. They're like, "Oh, you mean 308?" I'm like, "Guys, calm down. I just broke 250."
Yeah, well, you can be in 308 until I eventually work my way down and then go the fuck back to 275.
Okay.
But no, I mean, you got the frame for it. I mean, you're already strong now, because I think you're, what do you, so I remember I was listening to you on one of your, I forget which episode you just did recently, but you're talking, I think you walk around about like 250, 260 ish, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
the most I've been at night, I think, was like 263, and then mornings I've been like 254, 255. So
Dude, just slap on the extra 9 pounds. It will change your life.
yeah, I'm definitely thinking about. I want to put it on in a good way, but I'm
Well,
like,
that's the thing. If as long as you do it in a good way, I think you'll be happy with the results.
yeah, and I'm kind of in the like obviously like you mentioned earlier, there's the dots versus the total, and I'm on the total train, so
Total over dots always, baby.
for sure. So I guess kind of talking more about your future. Do you have any kind of plans to get back on the platform in the near future?
So near that word is a little, I guess, subjective right now
Yeah,
because like I said before, got a lot of life stuff going on right now. So I just think it would be a poor choice just to kind of jump in headfirst to the kiddie pool after kind of taking about like 6 months off. So, like I was telling you off camera, at 9/11, I strained my right abductor, my right patella tendon, pretty good, along with having some torn cartilage and some bone fragments floating around in there. So it's been a very slow, aggravating process, thanks to insurance. Trying to see an ortho to get that, scoped or taken care of or whatever. But I've always flirted around with the idea of maybe doing like bench only for a little bit just to see what I can do. Can I hang with the big boys? Especially once I get in the same gear. I would love to be able to come back and do full power, and I'd love to make a run to squat 12 because I think when I hit 11, I was one of 71, 72 people ever to do it. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm one of less than 100. Well, that list for 1200 is that much shorter.
yeah,
Um, but 1200, that's always been a number where it's like, if I hit it, I can hang up everything after that and just focus on doing like full power, or excuse me, not full power, like bench only or a different discipline. Um, or, if it's my time to ride off into the sunset from competing, then I'll find something else to do. But I always want to be involved in powerlifting to some degree, like I said earlier, whether it's coaching, judging, you know, becoming a meet director or whatever.
yeah, and kind of more into the multiply world. I know the IPA's got the meet down in Florida coming up in May.
They do.
The lineup for that meet is absolutely insane.
It broke my heart having to tell Tommy that I couldn't do that meet. I feel bad because I kind of not let her on, but I kind of made her hang on for a little while because I was trying to see, like, I was talking to my wife. I'm like, yeah, do you think you can make it work? And she's like, she's like, you got to talk to the boss, meaning Shauna. And just the way everything, all my life stuff I had going on, it just wasn't the right time. So I would love to, if I'm granted the opportunity or if I'm deemed worthy enough to have the opportunity again to compete in it, hopefully, maybe somewhere in the future, I'd jump on that in a heartbeat. Because, dude, even between like I mean, pretty much, between super heavyweight, 308, 275, just that alone is stacked to the tits.
Yeah,
It's unreal. Um, And then, I mean, listen, you got Chris, who's going to be down there. Whether he's going to be at 275 or 242, I'm not sure yet. But, I mean, dude, last year at 9/11, Strength of Heroes 2, dude squatted 1165 at 242. So, motherfucker's going to hurt some feelings when he goes down there.
yeah. I mean, we got John too. We got Trevor Jaffe competing in gear for the first time. Like, he's a phenomenal raw lifter. And then I think we got Dan Bell. We got, like, I just booked my flight down there today. I'm so excited to go see these absolute animals compete.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can get down there just to support, because like Chris is going to be lifting there. Mags, who was a good friend of mine and Pre's, she's going to be down there. John's going to be there. You know, Dan's going to be there. Andy. I think Andy's lifting as well. Andy Polk, who's on the State of the Union podcast with Chris, I believe is competing as well. So I mean, I got a lot of people that are kind of in like my circle that I want to just go and support and help out however I can. And I'm putting this out right now because I said it once to Bane. I'm going to have a Coors with Dan Bell. I know he's a Coors Light guy. I'm a Coors Banky guy. We're Coors' worst nightmare. I am making that happen one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm very excited to go down there and just see, like I said, these animals compete. Honestly, I think it's probably going to be the biggest meet of the year. I think it might top the WPO.
I believe so too, and also too. Mike Ski was coming. He's going to be lifting
back
as well.
Yep.
He's coming back, and his training's been looking pretty fucking good. So he may hurt some feelings too. But yeah, dude, the roster's stacked. It's going to be insane. I mean, pretty much from across the board, regardless of weight class, you got some strong motherfuckers there. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit about your training itself, kind of how many days you're training a week and what's like the frequency or intensity looking like.
So right now, just because work's been picking up because the weather's been getting nice, I'm only going 3 days a week. So normally the way the split works is Sunday is squat, Tuesday is deadlift, and then Friday is bench. And it's pretty much, for the most part, max effort. Shauna does throw in a speed bench day. And if I feel like I need it, I'll swap out my max effort for the speed bench. But, I'm working 70, 80 hours a week. So, mortgage and bills kind of take priority right now. But I still try to keep the intensity high. Granted, the percentages may not be exactly what they were, but I'm still trying to push into, that the upper end weights. Granted, I've had to kind of play around with percentages, but I think the last 3-4 weeks I'm still benching, between AR and bar weight. I think I'm benching like 650 plus raw. I don't even think I was doing that when I was supplementing, wink, wink, and in gear. But right now between pulls and squats right now are kind of hit or miss based on if my knee wants to cooperate. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes you got to learn how to make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
That's so funny that you say that. So, because my D-line coach, he was also our strength coach. He's kind of like I have like 10 fathers now I guess, but he was one of my like dads in a way because he was just super influential to me. And one of his big things was making chicken salad out of chicken shit, especially in like football plays. Like if you're gonna fuck up 100%.
Yeah, there's short-term memory. Once that whistle blows, okay, line up and just fucking do it right the next time. That's same thing with powerlifting. People miss a lift and they want to take their belt off and they want to throw it across the fucking room and throw plates like discus and everything. It's like, dude, it's a lift. It's not life or death. You're not going to war or being like a fucking nerd, dude. Like it's a lift. You get 1 or 2 more chances. You only need 6 whites to get through a whole meet.
Yep,
that's it. And people want to make a whole big spectacle out of it. It's again, it comes back to like what Chris has always said. It's just lifting weights with your friends. That's all it is.
Yeah, and with the old chicken shit rule, I'm probably gonna have to put that into effect tomorrow because I got max deadlift and boy is the fatigue hitting like a train right now. I had to take a nice little power nap for this to even get the courage to sit in front of the computer.
I mean, listen, one piece of advice I will pass on is just take what the day gives you. As long as you can give it your all, whatever that is, like a lot of people when they get, I'm just going to speak about conjugate percentages because that's what I know. But, if your coach programs say 80 or 85%, you can't base it off your meet max. You got to base it off that 80, 85% for that day. What I like to do sometimes is, I'll look at my meet numbers and then the old school, Wendler 531, you take like 90 or 95% of that, and that's like your training max.
Yep.
And then I'll take that number and then apply the percentages to that. And then I'm like, okay, because then the numbers are a little bit more easily digestible, because again, a lot of the big numbers I was hitting, I was 330, 340. I'm sitting around like 316, 317 now. So guess what? I'm not going to be able to dust 900 plus bands and chains and shit like that right now. It'd be sick, but shit ain't happening.
Yeah, and I think that kind of brings up the point too about the whole RPE scale. I think it's a very good tool, but I remember Chris telling me if you've never experienced a true RPE 10, you shouldn't be using that because you don't really know at the end of it's great to be able to adjust to your fatigue of that day, but
Correct.
if you don't know, I've seen so many posts of RPE 6, RPE 7, and they look like they're gonna pass out or the complete opposite.
Yeah, you have people saying like, "Oh, this was a RPE 6.5," and they basically like shit out their spine and they barely get it. It's like, dude, that's like an RPE like 15, bro. You better shut it down and go home.
Yeah, it's something that that's kind of one of the things with some of my clients is that was a big learning curve for them because I started to implement it more when they were starting to get to that higher strength level to where you can adapt to it more. And they'd send me a video being like, I think I'm going to call it here. And I'm like, dude, that was way too fucking easy. Put on 20 pounds and you'll be there.
Yeah, and that's when having really good training partners come in because, I used to be one of those guys where it just sucked, but the way, my hand was dealt was I had to train alone a lot when I was, doing a lot of the raw stuff. So it would be, half the time I used to cut myself short. That I'm like, dude, I'm like, fuck that. And then I'd want to like go balls to the wall every fucking time. And then I'm like, man, I can't walk today. I wonder why. It's like, hey, man, because you've been, again, not that I do RPEs, but like you're pushing, 70, 75%, like they're 95%. And for all the volume you're supposed to be doing, like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to walk right for a couple of days. You're gonna be walking like a crippled goose. So like, pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I think I forget who I said this to, but to me, there's two types of coaches or two reasons to get a coach. It's someone who needs a gas pedal and someone who needs the brakes.
Correct.
And to me, I'm definitely someone who needs the brakes. Just like with John, Charlie, and Kirby, they always gotta tell me like, dude, calm down, like take that small win. So like with that bench yesterday, it flew. I could have made a jump.
Yeah,
But,
dude.
and honestly, I was saying to John earlier, I watched it back probably, I don't know, everyone watches their videos back at least 100 times. And I was like, fuck, why didn't I go 375, 385?
Yeah.
But I took the win, hit a 5-pound PR with fatigue at max. So, just calm down, go into the meet and hit something big.
Well, that's the thing. You hit, it was what, 360, 365?
365.
So 365, right. So you're fatigued and you smoked it. So I don't know, crazy idea. What will happen when you take like a week of rest before? You come in after eating good, carved up, hydrated, jacked to the fucking tits, ready to go. And then you're going to smoke then you have the potential to smoke like a 30-pound PR.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like that's a lot cooler than being poo-poo pee-pee on, not going another 5-10 pounds in the gym,
Yeah. And for me, if I made that jump and I missed it, it would fuck with my head so
Oh,
much.
yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. You have that little black cloud and it will not fucking go. It'll keep pissing on your back, telling you it's rain. And it's like, I blew my wad for what? Because I'm very similar, dude. I get, not that I'm a real big, like, emotional lifter, which sounds very hypocritical because if you look at me after I hit my 1,100-pound squat is the complete opposite of that statement. But like I don't really like. I'm not the type of person where I need to like hit nose torque hard and like have people hit me and everything. It's like, dude, I got enough stuff between the ears to get me right. But once I hit that switch, like I just get in this mindset or zone or whatever, and it sometimes gets to the point where like Chris will be next to me. He's like, breathe, breathe. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not fucking breathing properly right now. And then and then Sean was always there to like kind of pull the e-brake on me sometimes because you saw at the meet, like I'm ready to run through a wall all the time.
Yeah.
And Sean was like, listen, you need to sit the fuck down. You need to have a beer and just chill. And then I'm, of course, once I crack open a Banky and I'm hanging out for a little bit, I kind of calm down and find my zen. But then, once you hear bars loaded, dude, it's time to fucking go to work.
Yeah, honestly, after you hit the 1100, you went up to shot. I was thinking it was going to be a little like Dave Hoff and Bob Coe, where he just gets trucked over.
Because if I tried to do that, I know Shauna would have a receipt ready to go and probably crack my fucking jaw. So that's why I usually just scoop her up and I walk away. Because I figure that's much safer than want to get like a straight right to the fucking dome.
Yeah. And something to me that I was thinking is kind of like when someone walks up to the platform and they're quiet or they're smiling, that's so much more intimidating than someone yelling. Yeah. It's like they're going to smoke this and walk away and just pure confidence.
Because, again, I grew up watching all the old school, like West Side people, Kurt Kowalski is like one of my idols, not that I'll ever look like him, but, he was always screaming and yelling and, I want to hold it and like going nuts. It's like, that's cool. And then you also look at Ed Cohn, who, again, is one of the GOATs. And it's like, you would thought he was just going out getting the morning paper, walking up to the fucking platform, smoke a huge all-time world record, and just walk off into the distance, And it's because, a lot of people, and I see younger lifters doing that now, where they want to scream and yell and get like all hyped up and everything because, yeah, it's great for Instagram. But then if you miss, I forget who said it, but, if you do screaming doing all that screaming and yelling and everything, you miss that lift. It's like, hey, man, you know how much you missed that lift by? All the screaming and yelling you just fucking did.
Yeah.
It's like, again, when I walk up to the bar, I'm having no trouble just trying to breathe to begin with. So why am I going to sit there screaming and yelling when I can't even go like I got enough shit to worry about.
Yeah, especially when you're a multiply guy and every quarter inch matters and shit. I mean, if you raise your blood pressure just a little too much, you ain't getting there anyways.
I mean, listen, I'm surprised I was even like conscious because you saw how purple I was after the 11. And everyone's like, why are you staring at the screen for so long? It's like, because I couldn't see. My face was so fucking bloated from Miller's the night before. It's like I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, so I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask you my question. If you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would that be?
Oh, man. I thought I was ready for this question because I've listened to pretty much all your episodes, and it's like, once you hear it, it's like, damn. Damn, that's a good one. I mean, everyone, like, I know Brandon Allen said get a coach. That's really good. Be humble is like another one. I mean, just go in just ready to learn. The whole thing is going to be a learning experience. Whether you come out on top and you win or whether you bomb out, it's a learning experience. And as long as you just get better with every meet and every training session, you will succeed. People want to, say, I want to hit all these numbers. Like I want to, Jimmy Cole, he benched 1,400. I want to bench 1,402. Okay, well, like, buddy, you haven't even hit 3 plates yet. Like, that's great, but let's little smaller, easily digestible pieces, because a pyramid is only as tall as it is wide. So if you build a great foundation by also having good people around you, you're gonna smash whatever you want to do, and you will have longevity in the sport, which I feel like that's becoming so rare nowadays. So to hear a young guy like you saying, I want to be in the sport for another like 15, 20 years, that's very admirable. Because I know a lot of guys, I've seen guys your age, that they just want to start taking everything under the sun, put up 1-2 cool totals, and then start traveling around the country, making videos for whatever,
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think the best athletes in the game are the ones that are students of the game. So yeah. I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on, and I hope I'll see you down in Florida.
You hopefully definitely will, and I appreciate you having me, man. This was a blast.